who have we got on today, Mark?
Yeah, new guest today, a gentleman called Paul Shephard, host of Mindset Change podcast. I've been thinking about this. We've got to get, if we want to lose weight, we've got to get our mindset right. So why not talk to a mindset coach, eh?
Yeah, definitely. And I think mental health is something that so many people struggle with, whether that's diagnosed, whether that's just that you're suffering. And weight gain and mental health, I think, unfortunately go hand in hand if you're suffering. So this should be quite an interesting episode.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. It's a bit different to what we usually do. Some people might think it's a little bit woo-woo and a bit airy-fairy, but I think we've got to look at it from all angles here, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, should we get going then?
Yeah, let's get him on. So here we are then with our latest guest, Paul Shephard, host of Mindset Change podcast. How are you, Paul?
I'm very good. Happy to be here. This is going to be a really good conversation. I'm looking forward to this.
Paul, so just tell people, if you don't mind, a little bit about you, your background and where you got to where you are now, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I used to struggle really badly with anxiety when I was younger as a child. And then in my teen years, it got really bad. And then I went on that kind of quest to fix myself, to try and work out what was going on. And I was getting everything wrong in regards to how to help myself heal, basically. And the advice I was being given by the traditional routes didn't help either. And then I kind of had my own awakening experience about that, where I realized that I was doing everything the wrong way around. And that set me on a new quest to work out what anxiety was and what I could begin to do to not only help myself heal, but also help other people too. And so I then trained and became a therapist, I became a coach. And then 5 years ago, I was dared to do a podcast like you guys at the beginning of yours, which is exciting. I did. And now it's a top one.
To do it.
Yeah, I was dared to do it by a client who said, I don't want your voice notes anymore. They were quite blunt. I don't want your voice notes anymore. I want to be able to hear you properly with the things that you talk about as they find it really useful. So the podcast was born and it's now a top 1% global podcast. So it's lovely, isn't it? Fantastic. You know, it's one of those things which just happened from a dare and there it is.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, Paul. We were talking very briefly before we started the recording today, and there's three of us here, right? There's three guys, and at least two of us have suffered with anxiety at some point in our lives. And I don't know if you agree with this. I think probably it's so much more commonplace than what a lot of people realise. Yeah,
it absolutely is, and it is. It's been my whole life is in regards to, not only having had anxiety, then panic attacks. It was beginning to explore what are the real causes behind this. It's very easy to believe there's something wrong with you, that you need fixing, and you can feel weak, like that you're a failure for having anxiety. But we have to normalize it, because anxiety is a completely normal response to how we're forcing ourselves to live. Our bodies have not evolved to do what we're making it do. And we're not resting and we're not recovering. We're poisoning it on a day-to-day basis and then wondering why on earth we feel anxious. So there are all sorts, it's quite nuanced. There's lots of aspects to it. But I believe anxiety needs a holistic approach rather than just trying to work out how to think differently, which is one of the normal approaches with it.
Yeah.
If you're working too hard, for example, then, that can make you feel very tense and anxious. So that can be one aspect, which isn't going to be changed just by changing your thoughts to more positive. It requires you to do something different within your day-to-day work, if possible.
Yeah, I guess it manifests itself in different ways and in different situations. I know certainly the most recent podcast you put out about sort of social anxiety, and I guess that's maybe not something that affects everyone, but something that did affect me. And I know sort of when I was a bigger guy and sort of going out, you were conscious about your weight and you're worried, well, what people are going to think of me? I just see this fat guy in the corner with his shirt sort of pushing out. Yeah. And so I guess there's different different ways in which it manifests itself, and compare that to again, someone who's sort of suffering depression and anxiety. It's very different, but it affects us all in different ways.
Yeah, it does affect people in different ways. But the key aspect of what you were just saying just then is there's a belief that we tend to hold, and we're easily programmed into this, that somehow we're not good enough. Yeah. So again, we've got no hair, no hair, Mark. It could be that it could focus on. It can be your weight. It can be what you earn. It can be your your height. It could be all sorts of things that the mind says, yeah, this is how you're not good enough. And then you'll get caught up in that mind trap of trying to fix yourself or actually avoid social situations because there are certain things you might not be able to do anything about, which could be your height or at that moment your weight, etc. But that's what the ego does. The ego is conditioned into problem solving, and it has a negative bias. So it's very easy for it to come up with a narrative about you or about other people, which tends to focus on those negatives. And it can be really believable as well. If you think that your weight is an issue, you'll walk through the world looking for evidence that that is true. You'll misinterpret people's facial signals. What they're saying is somehow it's about you. When the reality is, it's probably not. No one's that interested, to be fair. But we're very good at making it all about us.
I find it absolutely fascinating when you kind of like look back at the human brain. So I don't know whether this is true, Paul, but like I heard that we often think negatively of things, and that's built into almost like our survival from caveman times.
Yeah,
like better not go walking through the woods because there's wolves in there or something like that. It sounds stupid, but our brains do, don't they? They focus very much on the negatives. And in the marketing world where I work, we almost sometimes try and use that little bit of fear in order to, because we know if you put out two, so for example, if you put out 2 videos as part of a marketing campaign and one's very positive and one's very negative, on nearly every occasion, the negative one will have a better outcome.
Yeah, it taps into people's pain points. We have a negative bias. I think they worked out that if you created a tweet, is it called a tweet now on X? I don't know what they call it now. If you had the word disgusting, it's more likely to do really well, that tweet, than using something more positive. So we're really tapped into negative language and TV, movies, books, things which seem exciting, but can reinforce that there's a lot of danger out there. There's a lot of negativity out there. And in a way that can become, in a way, your reality. That's what you over-focus on.
Yeah. I'm quickly going to add disgusting to my next set of social media posts. So just taking a note of that now.
I had an interview with Paul Shephard. It was disgusting. What did he say? What did he say?
There we go. Yeah, that'll be the opener.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Paul, so tell us about you said that you once upon a time you were larger, you were like us and a lot of people probably listen to this podcast, overweight, and you had a different way about it, I think is the words you said. So I think, like, I don't know what you guys have been through, but when you're overweight, it is very easy to base your whole personality and self-esteem on that. If I'm slimmer, then I'll be happier and I'll be more confident. Yeah, which is absolute nonsense. But we do fall for it. We do fall for that idea. If I suddenly change shape,
myself of that.
If I change shape, I'll just be this new. I will emerge from this cocoon like a butterfly, and I'm going to have this amazing life, right? So I fell into that trap.
Yeah,
and again, and I really want this. I was thinking about your interview earlier, and I really want this message to home. I hope that trying to change anything in your life from a pain point, I need fixing, I'm broken, I will be better, I'll have a better life if I change this thing, is a very dangerous game. Because, and we know that if you make a New Year's resolution, 88% of people will have failed in 2 weeks from that New Year's resolution. It just wouldn't have happened for them, because a lot of it comes from pain, and their self-esteem is wrapped up in, well, if I get this result, then I will be a happier person. Or even more dangerous, I will start to live the life I really want if I reach this goal. And I know that a lot of overweight people do believe that, I will have this amazing life. I will feel amazing if I've got to X, Y, and Z, what their target weight is. And what I want to say to people is begin to live today, now. Yeah, do that for yourself. That's what I did. I began to focus on a future me that was healthy. I didn't focus too much on shape and size and things like that. I focused on healthy and how I looked, glowing, full of energy. And in a way, the more you begin to connect with that future self of yours, and it has been shown, how you connect to your future self will determine your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors here in the present moment. And the more you begin to fall in love with your future self, that future life, the energy, connectivity, whatever you want to be doing with it, the more likely you are to begin to make those changes now. And it's very, very different to trying to change your weight or your life or your health because of pain. I don't want to be this way. I don't want to be, lacking in confidence. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be ashamed. Because all that does is, this is why people give up after a while and do those self-sabotaging behaviors. It's because it's painful to try and change your life like that. Really is. You're forcing yourself. You're trying to have willpower. We know willpower doesn't work. It's useless. So the more you try and force yourself, well, at some point in time, you're like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Give me that dopamine hit, that quick dopamine hit. Whatever your brain can remember is a good one. For me, it used to be 5 bars of chocolate, because you could go to the garage. I don't know if you remember these days. You could go to the garage and get 5 bars of chocolate, and it just seemed rude not to eat them all in one go. That's what I used to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick fix.
Yeah.
But it wasn't what my future self was doing. And by the way, how I changed my chocolate thing, I can't eat it now, not like that.
No. I
remember going for a run, and I felt heavy and I was sweating and I was just thinking, I'm fed up with myself. This is awful. And I remember I'd been shown a technique where the way that food often tricks us into having that dopamine trigger so that we then feel motivated to go and get it is food appears very close in your visual field. So I don't know if you guys got a favorite food that you can think of right now. Get a sense of where it appears in your visual field, whatever it is that you're focusing on. Yeah. So for me back then, chocolate was like right in front of my face, and I would see it and it would just look gorgeous and my mouth would start to water. And then unconsciously, I'd be heading towards the garage. It was only £1 back then for 5 bars. That's how long ago this was. But but that's what I did. And what I did then, if you change the location of the image, we feel different about the food. So I remember flicking away the image of the chocolate bar from some tools I've been learning. And I repeatedly did it. And eventually the chocolate wasn't appearing at all. I did force myself to go to the garage that day to get the chocolate. And when I started to eat it, it tasted like kebab fat. Right?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
For me, I don't know, my brain knew that the coating of fat in my mouth was just it's not something that it makes me kind of wretch. And it stayed with me. And I've been learning this technique and tool. And I remember doing this with a lady with cheesecake. She said to me, I'm obsessed with cheesecake. She was French, beautiful. But she said, I'm just obsessed with it. Please help me. And she was here in my office. And we did a similar technique. We added a few bits and pieces to it. But it was interesting. She said straight afterwards, I'm going to go to the patisserie across the road and get some cheesecake. I'm going to see if this has worked. The next time she came back into my office, she said, oh, what did you do? Because she said the cheesecake in the patisserie tasted of metal. So she's like, there must be something wrong with the cheesecake. So she went to another patisserie in Brighton where I live, and the cheesecake tasted of metal then. And for her, I don't know how her brain did it, but her brain changed because we moved location of the cheesecake, it changed it to a metallic taste. So for me, I got kebab fat, she got metal. And another client I did this on recently, we did it with wine. She came in and said, the wine tasted like wet dog hair, which made me laugh. But it's the power of the mind is incredible what you can do when you just get a sense of how things appear to you, how they try to hypnotize you. And when you begin to change location, anyone can do this. If you get a sense of where it appears, if you move it more to the left or move it down towards the floor or move it in towards the distance, the more you do that, just get a sense of what changes for you with any food you feel is kind of hypnotizing you to go and get it.
Yeah, the mind is such a crazy thing, and I think we don't understand the brain. There's so much we don't understand about it, because I've I've had experience of like eye movement therapy and things like that, and it is crazy because your experiences don't change, but the way you process them does, just with such simple tactics. And it, like you say, it can be so effective as well.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I love eye movement therapy. It's very useful for trauma, changing the way you feel about anything, because your eyes do look in a certain direction to access that memory, sound, and feeling. But when you begin to alter it with eye movements, it really can change how you feel about something quite quickly. It's very popular.
Yeah, and rightly so. You're so right. And I just find it strange that everyone's still got those experiences. You've still got that trauma. You've still gone through that. Whatever it may be, but
you're just dealing with it different. Right?
Yeah, there's so much to do with the brain. Yeah. And you're right. I think we get conditioned so much. I think about my children, and and I'm sure everyone is in the same boat. You look at companies like McDonald's, and it's all marketed for them. They're growing up doing that all the time, and they'll build the same unhealthy habits with fast food and stuff that many of us did, I suppose.
Probably more so. It's more accessible now, isn't it?
Yeah, and hopefully, like you say, as people like yourself start to get more of this stuff out there, there will be ways of sort of retraining the brain to say, this isn't what you want.
Well, the more you connect with that future you, that's really living your best life. And you think about, well, what habits have they got? Who are they with? Where are they? What are they doing? Because let's be fair, most people haven't chosen the life that they're living right now. They've kind of fallen into it, and like a lot of jobs and stuff like that. It pays the mortgage. They're frightened to leave the job because it pays the mortgage, and they've got kids and responsibilities. That can be quite miserable. Yeah. So any sense of what would help me feel good in the short term, that short term dopamine hit release, they'll probably use. And that's what these companies like McDonald's and other companies, they know that, they can say it's part of a, healthy diet if you do it a little bit, but they know that in reality, they want people to indulge in as much as possible. And there's a real war, really, for people's attention. And from vaping to just streaming to eating, drinking, there's all sorts of things trying to grab your attention to use their products. Yeah, and we know a lot of those products are just not the greatest for us. But if you have a future self that's like, I don't do any of that, why would I? I'm loving my life that much. I don't have those products in my life. Then again, those things you tend to lose. They tend to lose value, and again, you begin to do something else instead. Whereas if you're not living the life that you really want, then your brain will look for some ways to self-medicate. So I really advocate to anyone listening to this, start thinking about, and it's never too late, what life is it that you really want? Connect with that and begin to take small, tiny steps towards being that person now, embodying that person right now, embodying being that healthy person right now, whatever it is. And begin, the more you begin to move in that direction, those little steps will motivate you, because we love positive action. That makes sense? Yeah. Otherwise, if you're trying to just change yourself out of a pain point, and you hate your job and struggling in a relationship and stuff like that, trying to change your diet or trying to not drink so much or any unhealthy habits, trying to stop those becomes a lot harder because they soothe you in some way.
Something I said like in one of the previous shows is that when you're in that kind of rut, you can't find a way out. And so if you've got one pain point, it's like, okay, well, I'll eat less, but then you're lacking in something. And so then you'll just go to something else to self-medicate. And now it could be drink, it could be drugs, it could be gambling. And it's something that's probably never spoken about enough, that we actually should look to the future and look at what do you really want? I've been in a situation where I'm eating too much, so I don't then think about, well, where should I then sort of like process this energy properly? I don't want to eat too much. But yeah, looking further afield and like, what do I want? Who do I want to be? Is definitely a better way of doing it. But sometimes you just do feel like you're in that rut and you can't find a way out.
It is tough. There's no denying that most people have not even asked themselves, like, what do I really want? Not what we all get told what we should want. Yeah, but what do I really want? What is my dream? We're not mayflies, so we've got a bit longer. But what is it that you really want in this one life of yours? What is it that you would love to experience? What would make you alive? What would make you passionate? What would make you joyful? And the reality is you can make that happen. You can make that happen. I see it time and time again with clients who are skeptical. It's like, oh, really? Can I have that? And then you begin to help them realize they're not broken. They don't need fixing. They're not a project. They're absolutely good enough. And when they begin to live life from that place, suddenly those things that seemed an impossibility become very possible. And then they begin to aim towards those goals and dreams. And it's interesting to see where they go with it. It really is interesting.
Yeah, I think I've not read it all yet, but I'm reading a book about vision. And like you're saying, and as you're talking, Paul, I was just thinking to myself, you're right. You're so right, actually. You perhaps are unhappy with the life that you lead, but you don't know any different, so you might not recognize that. You have control over what you can eat, so you can have those little wins, I suppose, eating a chocolate bar or whatever it might be. But they're little things, that just really small things. And I suppose the real power and the Arnold Schwarzenegger book that I've been reading is all about your vision, and then you implement it. And you're absolutely right. Your vision shouldn't be, I want to lose 2 stone in 3 months' time. Your vision should be so much bigger than that.
Absolutely.
And again, as you started with a podcast, it just got me thinking. You're so right. Losing 5 stone doesn't make you happier. It makes you healthier, and there's definitely benefits to that. No one will deny that. But it's what do you want out of life? And I reckon that a lot of people listening to this podcast, if they took the time to reflect on it properly, what do you want out of your life? Because you only get one.
Yeah, that's it. This is it. It's not just rehearsal.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think that vision is so powerful. And from a business perspective, as a company, we have a vision board, and we have that because it keeps us on track. It makes us focused as to where we're going. So why on earth am I not doing that in my personal life? It's so right.
Again, because we do live in a society that promotes capitalism, so you should do that in business. Great. But when it comes to our personal life, it's one of those things which people almost like they don't feel good enough to do. I don't know if I can achieve that. So I've kind of settled for this job, and we all get what we settle for. So it's daring yourself to begin to dream bigger. And you know what's interesting? Some people say, well, what if I don't get that dream? I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's not the destination that matters, right? It's the journey along the way. I mean, what an exciting adventure this life is, right? When you make this one big glorious adventure to be as healthy as possible, to have as much fun as possible, to build the life that you truly want. You haven't got time for, overindulging in drink or drugs or food or whatever. You've got other things to be doing with yourself, and that's what, when we make life that exciting, and we get caught up in that energy, and again, it's our mitochondria love it. The more that we move, the more we exercise, we build more energy, and we want to expend it. We want to go, what we're going to do with it. It becomes a way of living. You begin to embody your future self now. It's a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He was one of my mentors, called Be Your Future Self Now. I really would recommend it. And it really does, look at the importance of why it's, what you can do to begin to create steps towards being your future self. And just small little steps. It doesn't have to be anything huge. That's the thing that people make the mistake of. It's how on earth will I get to that vision? Don't focus on the end destination. Focus on what little steps can I do today to begin to focus on how do I really want to live. Even asking yourself the question, how do I really want to live? What does it look like? Great place to start.
Yeah, you kind of break it down into mini goals, don't you? If they said to us now, right, you've all got to get to Florida, then we wouldn't go, oh, crikey, that's a long swim. We'd go, right, what am I going to do to get there? Right, I need to get there from my house to the bus station to the train station, and you break it down into mini goals to get to your final destination. And what you say there as well is something that I battled with when leaving my old job and starting a business years ago now, was, I would rather lay on my deathbed and think, least I tried, than I stuck it out 40 years, very unhappy, but continued anyway. I'd rather try it and fail it, to be honest. Yeah, there's an amazing book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bonnie Ware. You can Google it's been sort of compiled into an article on The Guardian if you just Google the term. And this is a palliative care nurse in Australia who was looking at the regrets of people on their deathbed, and no one said, what, I wish I worked more. No, I wish that I'd not spent so much time with the family. It all came back to, why did I do that? What was going on with me? But we do live in a society that pushes you to work until you retire, and then, it's free for all after that, how long you'll live, because most people, when they retire, the statistics ain't great. And I think there's a reckoning coming when people are, we're looking at young people these days, and they're being criticized for it, going, oh, you're woke, you should be fitting into this 9-to-5 culture. And they're saying, quite rightly, why? I want to build a life that I really want to live, and I want to live outside of my career. So no wonder a lot of them are moving towards being an entrepreneur, having side hustles, building their businesses. And, unless big business actually gets its act together and becomes a bit more adaptable and values their workers, and values the people who are giving their time and energy for them, then people will go and do their own thing. And that's you can see it happening over and over. I work with lots of entrepreneurs to help them grow their mindsets and things. And, we all say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm unemployable. I couldn't work for a company.
Absolutely. So one of the things on your podcast you do a lot of is meditation. I've listened to a couple of them, and it's really helped relax me, actually. I listened to one last night. I listened to one driving a car the other day, and I thought that's maybe a little bit more dangerous. So. I'll save this to when I get home.
Yeah.
But what role would meditation play in helping guys with weight loss, do you think?
Yeah, a big role. I interviewed on my show recently as a doctor called Dr. Jose Coros-Mer, who did a brilliant book called Breakthrough. And what we've been looking at and what we were talking about is part of the brain called the default mode network, which it houses the ego. So the ego is your perception, individual perception of yourself and people around you, your belief systems, etc. But if this part of the brain is overactive, then you can find yourself ruminating, feeling anxious and stressed, over planning, overthinking the future, which of course, we'll try to self-medicate with when it comes, with food, etc., or drink or drugs or whatever it is that people are, what their poison is. But with meditation, you can begin to quieten down that part of the brain into a much more healthy state. So it becomes much more useful. And there's another part of the brain called the central executive network, which is, we can focus on one task at a time. We can tap into our innate intelligence, our intuition, our inner creativity, our inner genius. So it's an amazing part of the brain. But we live in a society that's really, really overstimulating the default mode network. So meditation really helps to calm it down. And what you often hear is, oh, I can't meditate. I mean, every client has said that to me when they come into my office. I can't meditate. And I'm like, I will get you meditating. And we start off with 5 minutes. It's very simple. I have a whole program that they could do 5 minutes. And every client, I've never seen a client not go, oh, I don't like it. They go, oh, it's just so peaceful. And it's because our default mode network has begun to quieten down. They can sleep better. They feel more confident. They feel more relaxed in themselves. And again, that has a huge effect on self-identity and their habits. And it's just, you can just start off with 5 minutes a day. Don't go running into half an hour or 40 minutes, which seems huge. But most of my clients, I think all of my clients now do the longer versions because they just really welcome that peaceful state. And they discover their own insights. There's so many benefits about meditation, but it's one of those things which seems a bit woo-woo.
Yeah,
guys,
I was going to say that.
Yeah,
I spoke to a couple of lads yesterday, and I said I'm talking to a guy called Paul Shephard, and he does mindset change, and he does meditations. And I go, that's a bit airy-fairy. That's not really very blokey, is it? And I thought, well, I hear what you're saying, but we've got to try these things and explore these things. And I've dabbled in it a bit myself, and I have to say there is a sort of a feeling of peacefulness that comes over when you sort of have this. And so
it's powerful. It's Shaolin monks do it. You know, kung fu fighters. They all meditate because discipline is freedom, and there's a discipline that comes with learning to meditate, to master your mind. You know, I think the ego often feels threatened by something it doesn't understand. So it creates an airy-fairy story, a woo-woo story or something like that, because it just doesn't want you to sit still. You know, because when you sit still and become present, the ego struggles to be there. When you're fully present, where's your stories? Where's your narrative? It struggles to exist. So meditation is a way to create freedom through, discipline, self-discipline and mastery. And again, just start off with 5 minutes. It's a very, very simple thing to do.
And so if you are starting meditation for the first time, is there a time of day to do it? Is it like first thing in the morning? Is it sort of before bed, midway through the day? What would be your sort of advice for someone who's sort of giving it a try for the first time?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at what's your day going to be like. A lot of people I've worked with have got young children. So as soon as the parents have opened their eyes, the kids know. So trying to meditate around that's going to be very difficult. But when the kids have gone to school, just grabbing that 5 minutes can be very, very useful. We spend, the average person spends 2.5 hours on their phone looking at social media. So when people say they haven't got enough time, absolute lies.
Yeah.
So it's looking at when's the best time for you. I don't recommend too close to bed because most people fall asleep. The brain's going, oh, this is bedtime now, is it? So
yeah, that was the first thing I did. I fell asleep, I think, on the sofa.
my comforting voice. But it's a very powerful way of connecting with your mind. So sitting up is a good way to make sure that you're not falling asleep. Sitting with your back upright, and a time of day when you feel a little bit more energized. So if morning is for you, I love morning meditations. It really sets me up for the day. But I also like one in the afternoon if I can, if I've got time to fit one in. And I think, I love a 30 or 40 minute meditation. It's just absolutely lovely. Because I wear an Oura ring, and on the Oura ring, my stats on the app show that I literally am asleep, even though I'm meditating. It says, have you had a nap? But giving your mind and body that rest gives it a time to reset and recover and heal so that you have the energy to focus on the next part of your day. Because a lot of us are simply doing too much and we're feeling quite frazzled by the end of the day. And that's when those bad decisions tend to creep in.
I think we're, like you say, society nowadays, we're so plugged in. We don't stop, and the times where we used to stop perhaps and relax a bit more, we're now plugged into social media. It's actually, I'd say it's more important than ever, meditation now, that you take that time to look after yourself.
Your mind needs quiet and it needs space.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that can feel quite frightening, but that's when we begin to really listen to ourselves. And our heads are filled up with so much clutter and noise, not only from every screen, that we look at, the noise around us, music, we're listening to podcasts, which is lovely. But we do need those breaks of silence, even if it's just for a few minutes, looking out a window, at the garden, or I live by the sea, so I can just walk along the seafront. I do a 40-minute walk every day with nothing in my ears, nothing, just to hear what I have to say and just allow some silence. So again, it's a very powerful way of connecting with yourself and beginning to, if you're going to focus on your future vision, do it then. Where do you really want to be? Who do you want to be? Do it now.
One thing with men, when on their weight loss journey, there's often faced with setbacks. They struggle with setbacks. Like I said earlier, we have that fuck it moment where you have your cheat meal, but then it becomes a cheat day, cheat week, cheat month. What advice or tips would you have for when people sort of find themselves falling off the wagon and needing to sort of get back on it, so to speak?
I mean, what I would look at there is what I just call a survival cycle. So for some people, if they, when we're talking through their history, that is very common for it to keep popping up. Oh yeah, I start off with something positive, then it plateaus, then I break it, then I beat myself up, and then I get back on it. And for them, that's our survival cycle. So we're talking the subconscious there. Subconscious mind is all about survival, which is houses ego. If that's been your history, it looks like your brain has been programmed into, this is what we do. So the brain is all about survival. We feel good when we survive something. So you feel good when you start off something new. Yeah, I'm going to do this thing. It's January the 1st. The new diet starts today. And then in a short period of time, your brain knows that you're going to start to break that cycle. You'll beat yourself up. You'll break the habit. You break your your resolution, you'll beat yourself up, and then you'll start to try and get back on it again. So that's your survival thing. And then you'll feel good because you're starting again. And it's a horrible cycle. It's very painful. Understanding that can be very helpful for a lot of people in regards to just the awareness that you're trying to go back into that survival cycle again. But for most people, go back to, why are you losing weight in the first place? Are you doing it because you think that your self-esteem will improve? Are you doing it because you think your life is going to be better for you? That you're going to be more abundant, or you're going to have more opportunities, or whatever it is? If you're doing it from that perspective, then those setbacks can feel even harder for you. Whereas when you begin to build your life, the true life that you really want, a setback is a beautiful opportunity to look at, what is it that I'm not doing well? That smoothie in the mornings turned out to be 1,000 calories. I didn't really realize, so there are all sorts of things which can cause a plateau, but also at the same time cause a setback for someone. But setbacks are beautiful opportunities to help you grow. What is it that needs to change? What is it that I could begin to do differently? And the more you see it as an adventure, rather than, oh, well, I'm a failure, survival cycle, beat myself up and we can start again. The more we see it as a beautiful opportunity to grow, then you can carry on with your weight journey in the way that you see fit, rather than self-punishment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like I said, I've been on my weight loss journey. I lost 4.5 stone. And then I've kind of hit a plateau over the summer, and there's been lots of distractions. Namely, there was a big football tournament, which took my mind off sort of healthy eating. But and then just recently I've had an all-inclusive holiday. And so there's been things, but then I've kind of come home and I was reflecting on it, and it was just a moment in time. It was just part of the ride. It's not the beginning. It's not the end. And something I've started to really think about, your weight, like I said, it's just a number on a set of scales that you look at it first thing in the morning. It's such an insignificant part of you and who you are. But yeah, it is ultimately just that moment in time where you are at that moment. And it's not the beginning. It's not the end. Your weight is never final. And so, I've started to just, I guess, be a bit more at peace of having setbacks and sort of plateaus, and things are going to happen. It's all part of the ride at the end of the day.
The number on the scale is irrelevant. It's your story about it that will make it into whatever it is. You know?
Yeah.
And if you've got some kindness and compassion towards yourself, no one's weight journey is going to be linear where it's just soaring to your weight goal.
Yeah.
Every journey, every goal that we have has its dips, which are growing points, has its struggles and challenges, and that's how we grow. You know, that's how we begin to discover more things about ourselves because we're being challenged. And to expect your weight loss journey, your health journey to be plain sailing would be a crafty trick of the ego waiting for you to fail. So it's when you expect those blips and you're expecting, do you know what, I had a burger, you know, the burger isn't the problem. It would be your story about the burger that's going to be the biggest issue. Yeah, and what that could lead to. So it's the more you have an understanding of your mind and your mindset, and you're seeing this as one big adventure. You know, if you had that burger, you might be like, well, do you know what? I'm all good with that. And I'm going to continue on my journey because I'm having much more nutritious food later on. I'm doing this, that, and the other. So it's all good. You know, it's our story about things that really are, you know, that really could be amended rather than, you know, torturing ourselves or whipping ourselves with a stick just because we ate something, which I often, when I work with clients with weight, you know, it's some people come in and their faces look terrible. They're like, "No, are you okay?" And I'm like, no, I really let myself go at the weekend. And what did you do? And it's like, well, I had a burger. Okay. You know? So we talk about the story rather than they had a burger.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we let that be the catalyst to then making more bad decisions.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not the burger that makes you overweight, is it? It's the burgers. Yeah.
It's what we do. It's what we do more of. You know, no one's going to get overweight from eating a chocolate bar or having a burger or, you know, having a pint of beer, whatever it is that your choice is. The reality is, this is what we do more often. And if your value is health and having an adventure, then you can have your burger, you can have your chocolate bar, you can have your pint of beer if you want. You do you. It's, again, what we do more of that makes the biggest difference. It really is.
That's something that I really sort of kind of woke myself up to, was like the realization is I never got fat from one holiday or one sort of curry with my mates or a night out on the beers. And since I've been on my weight loss journey, I've been able to do all of those things. I said in the last sort of 6 months when I've lost this 4.5 stone, I've had a week's holiday. I've had 2 holidays this year. I've had sort of days out at Cheltenham races with the lads. And again, and it's all about understanding I'm doing these things, but it's part of a bigger thing. And I never got fat. It was more, I got fat of what I did on the day in, day out. And it's when I'm not doing those things, what am I doing? And so that's where I realised that's where it's got to change. And so it's my Monday to Friday, my day to day almost. I said, I went to Cheltenham races. I had 10 pints and went out for a curry. But I didn't wake up in the morning and feel ashamed of it. I feel like I had a good time with my mates. It was great to connect with my friends again. We've all had a great day out. Now I'm back to it and carry on the journey. And I think there was definitely a shift in the way I viewed things like that, where previously I probably would have woken up the following morning and think, oh my God, what did I have yesterday? Oh, might as well have a full English now and just carry on.
And it's very common. It's common people do that. They're like, well, you know, fuck it, I've done that now. So that's it, game over. I'll think about losing weight or being healthier another point then because it's far too late now. Crafty trick of the ego, because it wants to keep you in that survival cycle. You know, we'll get back on it and then we'll make this big effort and then we'll fail again and we can keep that going. And it's just breaking free of that program with intentional thought of, do you think, I love one way I'd like to think of this is, imagine that you're driving your car. Your car is through life. You're the car. And in the back seat is your ego, like a little child. Yeah. And again, you wouldn't let the child reach over and grab the steering wheel and tell you where to go in life. You would actually say, no, I'm gonna drive.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's lovely that you want to, but I'm gonna
absolutely.
do it. But that's what we let the ego do. We let the ego from our past conditioning, and it is quite childlike. You know, if you have a look at a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of decisions, it can be a sense of childness about it. Not in a negative way, but it's just an old program. Every time it's leaning forward to drive, it's an opportunity to say, actually, do you know what? I'm going to lead. I'm going to lead. And yeah, this is what we're going to do, you know, and you create with intention the direction you want to go in next, what that looks like for you. Otherwise, if you let your ego dictate your choices, you'll always be a puppet on the string of your past conditioning. That is a dangerous game. And that's what a lot of people suffer with. You know, it's they go into that unconscious trance and they're just repeating the past.
With anxiety, going a little bit off now, but going back to anxiety. So, you know, like I said, I suffered with anxiety a few years ago, and it's horrible. It is very debilitating. But one of the things that kind of shocked me was that I didn't realize that pretty much every human suffers with some form of anxiety. And the reason I wanted to sort of get this out there and see what you thought is because I've got quite a few friends that have sort of suffered into their 40s as well. And it amazes me how men in particular, and I was certainly one of these, beat themselves up for having mental health problems. Like you say, it almost, again, it's another negative. But am I right in saying that everyone suffers with, well, not suffers, everyone has a form of anxiety? It's almost a survival mechanism, isn't it?
Well, you have your survival mechanism. I mean, we wouldn't be alive if we didn't have that part. But we all have, to some degree, anxiety out of context. It might be, you know, thinking about money. For a lot of people, money makes them quite anxious and nervous. It might be socializing. It can be dating someone. It can be travel. You know, I've helped so many people travel because our minds have had this bad experience and it doesn't want to repeat it. You know, bathroom anxiety is very common. A lot of people, it's not a fear of bathrooms, by the way, it's a fear of being out and not being able to get to one because they've had an incident where they were struggling to get to a bathroom, and then the mind panics. What if we mess ourselves? What if we get embarrassed and ashamed? And we'll do anything to avoid shame. And it's hardwired into us because we don't want to be rejected. So, you know, the more we normalize anxiety, as in most people have it to some degree at some point in their life, it can fixate on something from health to bathrooms to travel, socializing. And I believe it's a wonderful opportunity to look at your life and think about, okay, what's adding pressure to my nervous system now? What needs an upgrade? So I'm a big fan of believing that anxiety is a gift. It's our wake-up call to reassess, am I living the life I really want, or am I forcing myself to go to work because I want the cash so I can live for a couple of hours on the evening and the weekend? You know, it's all of these things compound and put pressure onto the nervous system. And the nervous system will let you know through anxiety that it ain't happy.
Do you know what? I've never thought about it like that. And you're wrong, because on the back end of that, I changed so much in life. And as a result, I would say life is so much better. But because it's such a horrendous thing to go through, I don't think I'd ever thought that good will come of this. But no, you're right. It was. I suppose it was your body's way to say, no, you're not working for me.
It's not sustainable. How we're trying to make ourselves live isn't sustainable. You mentioned earlier about the overstimulation, you know, from life and stuff like that. But it is, we're overstimulated. We're not resting enough. And the diets are, you know, we know that they're not the greatest in a lot of places. So all of that, you know, your body just struggles to cope with. And we're the only species on the planet that messes around with its sleep. I mean, you don't see the dog going, do you know what, I think I'm going to do an all-nighter tonight. You know, but that's what we do. And we push, we don't value sleep as a word that we should, but the body needs it because, I mean, just the fact that your brain goes to the toilet in the night, I think that's quite amazing, that your brain removes and flushes out toxins it builds up throughout the day. If we're messing around with our sleep, it's not going to be able to do that job. It's just in one thing. So again, it's the more we begin to value the basics, like, eating, drinking, like hydration, nutrition, make sure we got the right nutrition, sleeping well, some form of movement and exercise. Most people's anxiety would reduce quite significantly. And then you can take it to that next level with, well, am I living the life I really want? Am I in the relationship I really want with myself and with other people? What do I really want? And most people aren't asking that question. So they don't want to think about it. So they'll numb it with medication, drugs, drink, etc., food. So that provides a little distraction. But I'll tell you something now. Why anxiety gets worse is because it ain't going to give up just because you're medicating yourself. No. It'll keep knocking at the door until you answer.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue nowadays with a lot of the treatment is just take this pill and it will help you feel better, and then you'll figure it out. And actually, therapy, I'll be honest, Paul, I was a nightmare. Like, I had that really negative view of mental health until it hit me and my family. And now I just think, you've got to do more than taking a pill. And there is some really good stuff out there, which you mentioned. And I think you're right. Yeah, I think your anxiety and stuff is just the body's way of saying it ain't working for me. And if your body's not working, if you are what you are, aren't you? So yeah,
exactly. You can have past trauma. You can have hormone issues, nutrition issues. You could be doing too much. All sorts of things could be creating that pressure on your nervous system. And all anxiety is a messenger from the body going, can we just reassess this, please? Can we change course? Because this isn't going to work. And if you carry on, it will get much worse in the future. So let's address it now.
Excellent.
What would you just to sort of bring it to an end? If someone's listening to this and they're sort of suffering that, and they've had a bit of a wake up call listening to this episode, and they thought, God, that makes a lot of sense. What's the next step? What would you sort of recommend they do? How could they reach out to someone like yourself? Or
was in wake up with they've got anxiety, or they're looking at their life, or
kind of a bit anxious, looking at their life, thinking, okay, I'm suffering a bit of anxiety at the moment. I'm actually not that happy. I think it's a bit of an eye opener. What's the next step?
Again, anyone who's struggling with anxiety, definitely get yourself checked out by your GP. Because there may be a vitamin D deficiency, for example, or there could be anything else which can be just really showing up as a physical symptom. So it's always worth getting these things checked out. But yes, speaking to someone is really important. So from a coach like myself who specializes in anxiety, or a therapist, I provide a lot of free resources on the Mindset Change podcast and on Mindset Change UK YouTube channel. There's long form videos where people can begin to assess and do exercises and think about their lives in a very different way. So there's lots of help and resources out there, but the main thing is, don't try to do this by yourself. That's one clever trick of the mind. It's like, if I read the book, then I'll just do the exercises and then it's all sorted. Most resources over-focus on the mind. So they're trying to get you to think differently, which is important. But if you're not sleeping, if you're messing around with your sleep, that's not a mindset thing. That's that's something that you need to physically change and just begin to bring your bedtime a little bit earlier. It might be a mindset thing is if there's a part of you refusing to go to do that. But sometimes people go, I can't believe how much difference I feel in my anxiety just because I started to go to bed on time rather than midnight and then getting up at 6, which their brain somehow thought was enough sleep. So get help, get support, but look at it holistically rather than trying to change your past or trying to change your mindset. It's about a whole, it's looking at your life as a whole.
Brilliant. Okay, Paul, I think we're going to start to round it up there.
Cool.
But just want to tell people sort of about your podcast, where they can find you, sort of the socials that you're on and everything like that.
Yes, as I said, there's the Mindset Change podcast. All my links as well, my social links are there. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Mindset Change UK, YouTube Mindset Change UK. Come and say hello. It'd be nice to hear from you. And also the website is mindsetchangeuk.com. So
quite consistent.
Quite consistent for the moment. Yeah. And yeah, I do one-to-one coaching. Tends to be fully booked these days, and there's a wait list. But though I do take on small groups of people at a time if they do want to work with me. But other than that, there's a lot of free resources that I provide, which people can begin to look into, which are great. But I would also look at getting additional support as well. So it's been really lovely talking to you guys, by the way.
Right. Well, there we go. That was Paul Shephard. What did you think of that, Darren?
Yeah, I thought it was really quite good. It was nice to talk to him about different things. It amazes me how many people are actually suffering with, some sort of mental health issue at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think what he said about visualization was really good. Yeah, that's certainly a tactic that a lot of people use, successful people, to get what they want. And I think the meditation thing as well. I think previously I would have looked at meditation and thought, nah, it's not for me, that's just shit. But
yeah,
I think
for me, I would have been the same. This is a bit airy-fairy. It's a bit,
we're kind of that generation, aren't we?
Yeah.
But actually, we're so fucking connected nowadays. We're so, we're so busy. We're always working. We're always connected, be it through your phone or social media. And kind of like what Kat Thorne said on her episode, it is important to take time for yourself, I think.
Yeah, and just disconnect for a bit and just away from everything and sort of be there alone with your own thoughts. It's necessary sometimes. And I'm sure you'll probably all think this is a little bit different from what we've done in the past, but massively important and something that we do need to think more about, lads. And so take time for your mental health. Take time to sort of visualise what you want from life. Like I said, we've all got our ideas and everything, but really take time to think about that. It's really important.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed it, let us know. If you've got anything to say about it, again, let us know. We're on Big Fellas Podcast across most social media platforms. Visit the website, bigfellaspodcast.com, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks for listening.
See you on the next show, lads.